In this video I'll be talking about the success criteria and exemplar pages again, and today's slide is the analysis of the design context. Now, if you studied product design for a while, or you're in your final year in year 10 or 11, or it could even be year 12 or year 13 if you're moving through to Key Stage 5, you're probably quite familiar with being given a design context or a task, something to solve, or a problem it might be called, I suppose, at the start of a project. And it's often your task when you first start off designing, even as a professional designer, to analyse the context that you've been given or the problem that you've been given. Now, in this example, I'm going to be talking about what you need to be doing to achieve this, or some tips that you can do along the way. So I'm going to be using an example here of an old context on the legacy specification, now the old GCSE specification, and this is one around traditional products and talking about the use of cultural themes, I suppose. So in the example here you can see the first thing I ask my students to do really is to read through the context in quite detail and make sure they highlight all the key words. So in this case the student has highlighted the fact that traditional products is an important factor. He's given some countries where these sort of traditional products are produced. He's highlighted fair trade as a key information piece there. He's talked about new manufacturing technologies, which is how the product needs to be made. And he's highlighted that he obviously needs to maintain the ethnic influences, presumably from Africa, India, South America, China, wherever it is he's chosen. In the second part, the design task there, he's highlighted the fact that he needs to make a new product. He's highlighted that it needs to be suitable for the UK market and suitably packaged. Okay, so he's picked out a lot of criteria there. Now, after he's highlighted those, he hasn't just stopped there. He's also gone and defined kind of what that means to him in the project. So he's highlighted traditional products there, and he's put from generations, tradition is the technique or culture that's been handed down. So he's showing an understanding of the keywords, and he's done that for all the different keywords that he's highlighted there. So it gives us a really good understanding, or it shows the examiner or the moderator that we know what we're talking about. We know what the brief is about, or we know how to develop the brief from this context. Now he's gone on from there, and he's then gone to analyse this further. So once you've worked out what the context is asking you to do effectively, what you've then got to explain how you're going to plan to manage the task, or to meet the task. Okay, and what I like to get my students to do is to mind map this. Now, you might be quite familiar with the term Access FM. Now, this is a series of design technology keywords that you can use to help kind of pick out the key things that you need to talk about. So Access FM is simply an acronym and each of the letters in the acronym stands for aesthetics, which is what the product should look like; cost, consumer, as in who you're making the product for; the environment, and it could also include ergonomics as well, as in the case of the student; safety, size, function, as in what the product needs to do; and manufacture. So once you've read the context, it's then a good idea to analyse it further and unpick the context using these criteria. So if we pick on aesthetics for this task, for example, the student here has highlighted the fact that it needs to relate to China in some way, because presumably that's his chosen cultural context. He's picked blue or red as a colour there, because he's later sort of thought about his consumer and they're his favourite colours. I mean, he could also mention the fact that red and the importance of the colour red to Chinese culture as well could also be an important factor. So you can go through each of these things, each of these criteria, and what you're basically working out is what you need to know in order to succeed in the project. So for aesthetics, if we're talking about products that relate to China, we might need to make a mood board, or we might need to research Chinese culture or traditional Chinese products to actually find out a little bit about them, their designs, their styles, their traditions, all this sort of stuff that helps us work out the aesthetics that we're going to do. If we're talking about costs, for example, we might have to find out the cost of materials in the department. We might have to work out how much labour time is involved in the production of the product. We might also have to work out from our consumer, our chosen user or consumer, what the sort of budgetary requirements we've got. So what we've done, obviously, we've got the context, we've broken down the keywords, we've worked out the definition of the keywords, and then we've then focused on producing a mind map to help us unpick the criteria further. Now, something I really like to highlight as well is making sure that my students have also highlighted and explained the key, what I call MESS issues. So MESS issues being moral, environmental, social and sustainability issues. Okay, you might have a different acronym for these, but basically these are the important factors that obviously surround everyone designers. We've all got a moral compass and we have to think about these relevant issues when we're designing, and that's one other thing that I'd like to see in this page. Now, one extra thing that I like as well, as you can see right at the bottom left hand corner of the screen there, is put blue hyperlink. So what the student has done in this particular case is he's linked off any key information he's taken from the internet, because ultimately the work needs to be our own unless we are referencing research material, because we can't plagiarise work. We have to make sure that everything is our own. So he's obviously got a hyperlink there to fair trade. There's probably more revision material or appendix of information based on fair trade, and obviously he's researched some new manufacturing technologies again, which could go in as appendix. So that is in a nutshell how you can analyse context.